Hi, it's Oral Stories. If you enjoy creepy tales and true horror experiences, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. I've got something different for you this time, and I wish I could tell you it's just a story. But it's not. It's what really happened when I decided to explore the darkest legends of my town. I've always been drawn to the eerie, the unexplained, the kind of stories that leave a chill crawling down your spine hours after the screen goes dark. Maybe that's why I started my YouTube channel Oral Stories in the first place. It began as a passion project during the pandemic. Just me, a mic, some folklore books, and a fascination with forgotten urban legends. Over time, my audience grew. Comments rolled in. Do more of these! Ever thought of exploring them in person? And the more I read those messages, the more the idea burrowed in. What if I did? What if I went out, visited the actual places, documented them? I mean, ghost stories, creepy legends, haunted locations. That stuff was practically made for content. So I planned a new series. 16 stories. 16 places. All tied to my hometown and the surrounding countryside. Not just me reading spooky tales from a dusty book anymore. This time I'd live them. Walk the halls. Stand where people swore they saw something impossible. Bring the audience right into it with me. I decided to start with the old asylum on Carver Hill. A predictable first step, maybe, but a classic for a reason. Every town seems to have one. Ours just happened to have a real history of darkness behind it. Officially, it's called the Carver Psychiatric Center, but no one uses that name anymore. Everyone just calls it the Humming House. It shut down in the early 80s, after reports of staff abuse, botched procedures, even a few deaths swept under the rug. You know, the usual horror stuff. But one story always stood out, the tale of a patient known only as the Singing Woman. According to legend, she was lobotomized after repeatedly trying to escape. She sang lullabies to herself in the halls, even after the operation. Staff claimed she sang in perfect Latin, though she'd never been educated past 3rd grade. Creepy, sure. But I figured it was just urban myth. Still, it made for a killer hook. I prepped the shoot, head-mounted GoPro, night vision cam, lapel mic, a flashlight, a backup flashlight, because, you know, always bring a second flashlight, and my field recorder. I brought a friend with me too, just in case. Not for protection exactly, but I didn't want to be wandering an unstable building alone. I parked on the side of the cracked gravel road near the tree line. The asylum sits about a mile in, completely hidden from view by overgrown pines and brush. No signage, no fences, just the ruins of what used to be a psychiatric center half swallowed by the woods. You could smell the mildew and old rot before you even saw the walls. It was nearly dusk. Orange light spilled through the trees as we stepped onto the cracked path leading up to the building. Every step crunched, glass, leaves, dead branches. We didn't speak much. The silence felt heavy, like the forest didn't want us there. I started recording as soon as the building came into view. All right, I said into the mic, trying to keep my tone light. This is Carver Psychiatric, also known locally as the Humming House. Supposedly, you can still hear the voice of a woman singing lullabies through the walls. Some say she never died here. Others think she's still walking the halls, looking for her old room. I paused, then added, so let's find it. The front doors were long gone, just rusted hinges and splintered wood. Inside, the air turned colder, like the concrete had stored winter and was breathing it out. Graffiti lined the walls. Most of it harmless, but some symbols looked off. Like someone had tried drawing a music staff across the bricks, but the notes were all wrong, scattered, upside down, inverted. We swept through the first hallway. Floor tiles cracked beneath our boots. I narrated the history as we went. When the place was built, what procedures were used, who funded it, how many patients lived here at its peak. I'd done my research, and it made the video feel real, grounded. The first weird thing happened when we reached the 3rd ward. We were approaching a hallway that split in 2 directions when I felt a breeze, sharp and cold, cut through my jacket. I turned instinctively, expecting a broken window or open door behind me. Nothing. The windows were boarded, sealed with decades-old planks. The air had no reason to move like that. My friend felt it too. "You feel that?" he asked. I nodded, frowning. "Yeah, weird draft. Could just be old ventilation." We moved on, but I marked the time code. It might be a nice little spooky moment to highlight in the edit. About 20 minutes in, I found it. Room 109. According to my notes, that's where the singing woman had been kept after her final breakdown. The door was still hanging loosely on its hinges. I panned the camera in slowly. It was just a room. Peeling walls. An old metal frame for a cot. A smashed porcelain sink in the corner. But the moment I stepped in, I heard it. Faint. Soft. Like someone humming a lullaby right in my left ear. I spun, heart racing. My friend was down the hall, still filming another room. I called to him, but he didn't respond, probably had his headphones on. I checked my audio recorder, replayed the last 10 seconds. Nothing. Just silence, static, and my own breathing. That's when I noticed something scratched into the wall, above the bed frame. 5 notes, written like a musical bar. I couldn't read music, but the lines looked etched, not drawn, into the concrete. Deep. Like they'd been carved with something sharp. It felt recent. We wrapped filming around 9 p.m. I played it cool, smiled, kept the outro light. Thanks for watching, guys. That was Carver Psychiatric, aka The Humming House. If you want to see more haunted places like this one, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got a whole list lined up, and it only gets creepier from here. What I didn't say on camera. That night, while I was falling asleep, I heard that same humming. Not through headphones. Not from the footage. In my bedroom. Right behind my head. I didn't sleep much that night. Even with all the lights on, even after blasting music into my headphones, that humming kept threading through the silence. It wasn't loud, just enough to set my nerves on edge, like it was waiting for me to acknowledge it. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of the asylum, the cracked tiles, that cold breeze, the musical notes etched into the wall. Except in the dream, the notes were moving, crawling like insects across the concrete. When I woke up, my camera was already on, recording me. I hadn't touched it since the night before. I checked the footage immediately. It showed me lying in bed, breathing quietly still. But about 30 seconds in, the frame flickered. A single tone, flat and hollow, played through the audio track. And then a whisper, so faint I had to crank the volume just to hear it. It sounded like my voice, but distorted. Slurred. It said, "She remembers you." I stared at the screen until the battery died. By the time morning came, I convinced myself it was stress. Or maybe my subconscious messing with me. I'd been pushing hard lately, juggling uploads, editing all night, scripting, planning shoots. The mind plays tricks when it's stretched thin. That's what I told myself, anyway. I poured black coffee into my thermos and drove 30 minutes out of town to my next location, Larkhill Cemetery. This one wasn't as famous. No YouTube ghost hunters had hit it. That's what made it perfect. Larkhill was tucked behind a forgotten church, nothing more than a stone shell now, roof long since caved in. The cemetery was fenced in, overgrown, filled with time-worn graves that leaned at odd angles like crooked teeth. I'd grown up hearing rumors about it, mostly from older folks in town. They used to say kids disappeared there in the 1950s, back when the area still had families living nearby. The story went like this. A group of children used to play in the cemetery after school, weaving through gravestones like it was a maze. One day, 3 of them vanished, no sign of where they went. Some say they found an open grave that shouldn't have been there. Others say they were playing a game called Don't Blink, and the rules were simple: keep your eyes open. If you blinked, it could move. No one knew what it was. I got there just before noon. Sunlight poured through the branches overhead, casting long, skeletal shadows on the grass. It should have felt peaceful, even serene, but it didn't. It felt forgotten, like no one alive had been here in decades. I started rolling. The opening shots came easy, drifting across crumbling tombstones, close-ups of worn names. I recited the story as I walked, voice calm, steady, professional. Locals say the cemetery holds more than bones. That if you stand perfectly still and stare at the same gravestone for long enough, the world around you changes. They say the children who vanished weren't taken, they walked out, into something else. Again, good for the views. I wasn't sure I believed it. I spent an hour walking the site, getting B-roll. Wind stirred the grass, birds sang somewhere in the distance, and at one point I found a small, rusted swing set buried behind a stone wall. Just 2 seats, hanging from chains. Odd place for a swing set. I made a note of it, filmed a few slow pans, then moved on. That's when I noticed something strange on the audio feed. I always kept a wireless mic clipped to my shirt, and I monitored audio through a small receiver in my pocket. Normally I check the levels, make sure I'm not peaking or clipping. But something else caught my ear this time. A laugh. High, brief, childlike. I froze. Pulled the headphones in. Replayed the last 20 seconds. There it was again. Clear as day. A single giggle, just as I walked past the cracked headstone that read, Elsie Monroe, 1943 to 1951. 8 years old. I looked around. Nothing. No people. No footsteps in the grass. Not even a squirrel. I knelt near the grave, scanned the area for a speaker or some prank setup, but it was just moss, stone, and silence. My skin prickled. I told myself it could have been a bird call distorted by the mic. Still, I felt watched. I wrapped filming faster than usual. Kept glancing over my shoulder. And just before I turned to leave, I spotted something out of place behind a nearby tree. A small pile of stones, arranged in a circle. In the center sat an old metal jack, the kind kids used to play with before video games. Rusted. Still faintly silver beneath the grime. I didn't touch it. Just stared. That night, while reviewing the footage at home, I found something else. In the very last shot of the cemetery, when I panned across the swing set one last time, I caught movement. It wasn't obvious. Not like a ghost in white or anything cliché. But one of the swings sways. Just once. No breeze. No sound. No birdsong. Just the creak of a chain, moving slowly. Then it stops. I watched it 10 times. Tried to see if I'd brushed against it while passing. But I was meters away. I looked down at the audio wave. Right where the swing moves, another laugh plays. But this one, it isn't alone. There are 3 voices. Layered. Laughing together. That night I didn't dream. But when I woke up, the jack, the exact same kind I'd seen in the cemetery, was sitting on my kitchen counter. Still rusted. Still faintly silver beneath the grime. And I don't own any jacks. I didn't touch the jack. I left it sitting there on the counter all day, unsure what to do. I didn't film. I didn't even edit. I just sat on my couch, watching the video from Lark Hill Cemetery over and over, trying to find a rational explanation. It had to be a prank. Maybe someone saw me filming and decided to mess with me. Maybe that's all this was. Except I had no public schedule, and I didn't tell anyone about that shoot. I finally picked the jack up with a napkin and tossed it into a sealed Ziploc bag. I was halfway to the trash can when I stopped. I don't know why, but something in my gut told me not to throw it away. Instead, I dropped it in a metal lockbox I kept for camera batteries and shoved it under my bed. I shouldn't have done that. The next location was one I'd been saving for later, but I bumped it up. Maybe because I wanted to get out of the house. Maybe because I wanted to pretend I still had control. Ashwood Bridge. It was about 15 minutes west of town, down a road that locals rarely used anymore. Built in 1910, it was a narrow concrete span over a dried-up creek bed, barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass. The legend said that if you drove across the bridge just after sunset, you'd see a hitchhiker waiting on the other side. Sometimes a woman in white. Sometimes a man with no face. Sometimes just a figure. They never spoke. They only pointed toward the back seat. If you stopped, it was said you'd vanish from the road, only to be found weeks later, wandering miles away, unable to speak, eyes wide and glassy like a corpse. I didn't have a car rig to capture that kind of shot, so I planned to do it all on foot. I arrived just before dusk. The sun was bleeding out across the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees. The bridge itself looked harmless, cracked, weather-worn, covered in graffiti. I pressed record. They call it Ashwood Bridge. Locals don't cross it at night. Some say they've seen someone standing here, waiting. And if you stop to ask what they need, you won't like the answer. There was no wind, but the trees rustled like something was moving through them, just outside the edge of sight. I walked across the bridge, narrating the old tales, the disappearances, the stories parents told their kids to keep them from going out late. The concrete creaked underfoot with a sound that reminded me of a rope pulled too tight. Halfway across, I turned slowly, sweeping the camera over the empty road. And that's when I saw it. A figure. Far down the road behind me, barely visible in the falling light. Just standing there. No details. No motion. Just a human shape. At first, I thought it was a person. A hiker maybe. But something about the posture, the stillness, sent a shiver down my spine. I raised my camera to zoom in. Gone. Just like that. No movement. No sound. Nothing. I lowered the camera. There it was again, this time closer. I blinked. Gone. Now my pulse was racing. I backed off the bridge, walking quickly but trying not to look panicked on camera. I muttered something for the mic, something like, "Maybe just a trick of the eyes, sun's low, shadows mess with you." But I knew what I saw. And I knew what I heard. Because right before I turned off the mic, a voice whispered directly into my headphones. "Don't leave the jack behind." I froze. The jack. The one from the cemetery. How the hell would anyone know about that? I ripped off my headphones, scanned the woods. No one. Nothing. Just the quiet crackle of leaves under a slow wind. I ended the shoot early and got back in the car. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A notification from YouTube. Someone had commented on my asylum video. I heard it too. The humming. It's clearer every time I replay it. Is she singing in Latin? I didn't respond. When I got home, I went straight for the lockbox under my bed. The jack was still there, sealed in the bag. But the bag was open. I hadn't opened it. And next to the jack was a new item. A small coin. Tarnished. Thin. Etched with a musical note on one side. And on the other, a tiny bridge, cracked, overgrown. Exactly like the one I'd just filmed. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, the metal cold through the plastic. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't editing it into my footage. Something was following me. And the deeper I dug into these places, the more I spoke their names aloud, the more whatever this was seemed to wake up. That night, as I lay in bed, trying not to look at the lockbox, I heard it again. Laughter. 3 voices. Children. From inside the walls. And faintly, behind them, barely audible, a woman humming the same tune I'd heard in the asylum. A lullaby. In Latin. I didn't sleep. I didn't upload the bridge footage. I edited it, sure. Watched it back a dozen times. I even clipped the parts with the figure in the distance, each time it appeared, closer than before, and tried slowing them down, frame by frame. But there was no figure. Not on the footage. Just me. Alone. Talking to empty trees. Except the audio still had that whisper. Faint. Don't leave the jack behind. I know what I heard. I took a few days off from shooting after that. Just needed a break, I told myself. Let my brain settle, shake off the anxiety. But the dreams didn't stop. They changed. Every night now, I was standing in a different place, alone, in total darkness. Sometimes I heard humming. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes wind blowing through dead trees. Always there was a light. A faint glow in the distance. And I'd start walking toward it, knowing I shouldn't. The next location on my list was the Belcroft Mansion, a 2-story, colonial-style house just outside town. Once owned by the Belcroft family, one of the wealthiest names in the area, the house had been abandoned since the late 1940s. Local legend said the patriarch, Elias Belcroft, went mad after his wife died. He sealed off the entire second floor and spent his last years wandering the halls, talking to someone who wasn't there. Neighbors said they saw shadows moving in the windows, long after everyone in the house had supposedly died. Some claim Elias cursed the land before he died, claiming anyone who entered would wake the eyes that sleep beneath the wood. Creepy stuff. But for YouTube, it was gold. I arrived at noon, hoping the bright light would keep the vibes manageable. The house sat at the end of a gravel road, wrapped in gnarled trees, windows boarded from the outside. A rusted gate leaned open on one hinge. It didn't creak when I passed through. That somehow made it worse. "Today," I said into the mic, "I'm standing outside the infamous Belcroft Mansion. They say no one's lived here in over 70 years. But neighbors still report lights on the second floor, and figures watching from the windows." I walked slowly through the overgrown garden. Dead vines clung to the porch railing. The front door was cracked open, like it had been waiting. Inside, the air was still. Too still. Most abandoned places smell like mold, rot, decay. This one smelled new, like fresh wood, recently oiled leather. A faint trace of old perfume. I started filming as I explored the first floor. Creaking floorboards. Wallpaper curling at the edges. Fireplaces filled with soot. Nothing unusual, until I reached the hallway. There was a painting. Not a creepy, Gothic portrait or anything, it was a landscape. But it hadn't been there when I passed through the first time. It showed a hill, covered in gravestones, under a blood-red sky. A small bridge crossed the foreground. I swear it looked like Ashwood Bridge. I leaned in to look closer. In the corner of the painting was a small figure. Tiny. Barely more than a dot. But I could see it, standing on the bridge. Watching me. I kept filming. Interesting find. This painting doesn't match anything I've seen online. Might be original. Probably worth something. Or maybe it's just another layer of this house's legend. I moved to the staircase. As I climbed, I heard it. That same whisper. Closer this time. Breathing. Not through the mic. In my ear. "Leave the window open." I spun around. No one there. When I reached the second floor, the light changed. It was like the sun outside had dimmed, though I knew it was still midday. The hallway was lined with doors, each slightly ajar. I chose the one at the end. Inside was a bedroom. Dusty but intact. Bed still made. Vanity against the wall. Mirror cracked down the center. I approached, filming as I went. And then I saw it. In the mirror, not my reflection. The room behind me. Empty. No me. Just the room. I stepped aside, heart thudding. My reflection returned, delayed by half a second. A lag, like a live stream glitch. I stepped back. Again, no reflection. Just the room. And this time, a second figure in the mirror. Tall. Leaning in the far corner. Barely visible in the grain of the mirror's crack. I didn't turn around. I turned off the camera. Backed away slowly. Closed the door. And that's when I noticed it. Every door upstairs was now shut. I hadn't touched them. They'd been open when I walked in. I left the mansion. Didn't even record an outro. I drove home, eyes on the rearview mirror the whole time, half expecting to see someone in the back seat. I didn't. But when I got home, I found something waiting for me on the porch. A box. No label. No address. Just my name, written in neat cursive. I brought it inside. Opened it. Inside was a cassette tape. Unlabeled. And a note. Keep your eyes open. They're starting to notice you. The box sat on my kitchen table for hours. I didn't touch the tape. Not at first. Instead, I paced the apartment. Every room. Every window. I checked the locks. Turned on every light. Nothing was out of place, except for how wrong everything felt. Like the air was off. Thick. Too quiet. Eventually, I gave in. I still had my old cassette player from a previous short film prop shoot. I dug it out of a storage bin and popped the tape in. No label, no markings. Just a cheap, black plastic shell. The sound started low. Static at first. Then humming. Not music. Not a tune I could place. Just a soft, continuous hum, like someone trapped in a hospital room, trying to comfort themselves. Then the voice came in. He left the window open again. Another pause. Then something faint behind it. Laughter. Childlike. Distant. Then silence. No click. No end tone. Just dead tape. I hit rewind. Played it again. The second time, the voice changed. We're already in. I stopped recording for a few days. My brain felt scrambled, like my thoughts weren't lining up in the right order. I'd walk into a room and forget why I was there. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from viewers. Anyone else see the reflection move in the mansion video? Why is there a face in the window at 11:46? You edited this, right? Tell me you edited it. But I hadn't uploaded the mansion video. Not yet. I opened YouTube. There it was. The Belcroft Mansion, Don't Watch Alone. Uploaded. Public. Thumbnail was a freeze frame I didn't choose, a shot of the cracked mirror, the moment where my reflection wasn't there. I checked the channel manager. No upload log. The file wasn't even on my hard drive anymore. I watched it. My voice was in it, but different. Off. I sounded tired. Slower. Like I was slurring slightly through each word. And in the background, just under the music bed, was a familiar humming. The same one from the cassette. I pulled the video immediately. 30 minutes later, it re-uploaded itself. New title. They're with me now. Belcroft Mansion Haunting. I deleted it again. An hour later, it was back. This time with over 4,000 views, dozens of comments, and 3 direct messages from people saying the same thing. I watched it and now I can't sleep. There's someone pacing outside my door. Something's wrong with your story, man. It's not just fiction anymore. I checked the lockbox again. The jack was still there. So was the coin with the bridge. But now, there was something new. A Polaroid photo. It showed me, sleeping in my bed. The camera angle was above me, slightly tilted, as if someone had been standing over me while I slept. In the corner of the photo, written in faded ink, was a single sentence. Your voice is how they find you. I spent that night digging through all the footage I'd shot so far. The asylum. The cemetery. The bridge. The mansion. I lined the videos up side by side, looking for connections, anything that might explain what was happening. And slowly, something started to emerge. Each location had a sound motif. A consistent background element that was never present when I recorded, but always appeared in playback. The asylum, humming. The cemetery, laughter. The bridge, whispers. The mansion, silence that echoed back wrong. And beneath all of them, when layered together, was the same pattern of tones. Faint musical notes. Almost like a melody, but not one I recognized. Just 5 notes. Low, high, low, lower, then a held high tone. It was the same pattern scratched into the wall in room 109 at the asylum. I replayed the layered audio again. and this time, in the static between notes, I heard something else. One story opens the door. The rest let them in. I shut the computer. Something was happening. Something real. And I was starting to believe that these stories weren't just about ghosts, or cursed objects, or haunted houses. They were about something older. Something that was listening. That night, I didn't bother trying to sleep. I unplugged everything in the apartment. My cameras, my computer, my phone. I even turned off the breaker and sat in the dark. But just before sunrise I heard it. From the living room. A quiet click. Like someone pushing record. The recorder wasn't plugged in. It hadn't been for hours. But there it was, its red light blinking softly in the dark. Recording. I approached it slowly, as if it might react. I held my breath and reached for the power switch. But before I could touch it, it clicked off. The light died. The file was saved. Later, when I played it back, there were exactly 7 seconds of audio. 5 seconds of silence. Then, the forest remembers you. I wasn't going to go back out. I swore I wouldn't. But part of me knew this wasn't something I could hide from anymore. Every attempt to stop, every moment I unplugged or stepped away, only gave it more room to move without me. The next location on my list was one I'd considered skipping entirely. Darrow's Hollow, a dense patch of forest an hour outside town, nestled behind the ruins of a collapsed ranger station. Local teens used to dare each other to spend a night there, but the place had a bad reputation even before that. People talked about time feeling off in the woods. Like you could walk for 5 minutes and find it was an hour later, or walk for an hour and still be only 10 feet from where you started. The legend said there were voices in the trees. Not from the trees, inside them. And sometimes, they moved closer. I left just after noon. No camera this time. Just the GoPro and field recorder. I told myself I'd do one pass through the edge of the woods, maybe walk down to the old ranger station ruins, and come right back. In and out. No dramatics. I reached Darrow's Hollow at 2:43 p.m. Thick trees surrounded the access trail. The forest floor was carpeted in moss and pine needles. The deeper I walked, the more everything felt muted. No birds. No wind. No sound. After about 20 minutes, I reached what remained of the ranger station. A few beams sticking up like broken ribs, half a roof, and one wall still standing. The rest had collapsed long ago. I pressed record and began narrating softly. This is what's left of the Darrow Lookout. It was abandoned after a fire in 1987, though some say it was already falling apart before then. No one was ever found inside. But according to reports, there should have been someone here. The moment I said it, something snapped. A tree branch. Loud, deliberate. I spun. Nothing. Just the thick green tangle. I kept moving. A slow loop around the ruins. I spoke more cautiously now, just to the mic. There's a story that says if you hear someone whisper your name in Darrow's Hollow, you must never answer. Because it's not a voice. It's the forest, trying to learn what you sound like. So it can call others, as you. I walked another 10 minutes. Then checked the time. 3:12 p.m. But when I looked again a moment later, it was 4:56. Nearly 2.5 hours gone. Just gone. I should have panicked. But I didn't feel anything. Just calm. Like the woods were breathing around me. Slow. Steady. Pulling me deeper. That's when I saw it. Carved into the trunk of a nearby tree, the same 5 notes. Low, high, low, lower, held high. Below it, etched more roughly. Stop speaking their names. My breath caught in my throat. I turned to leave, and found a path that hadn't been there before. Narrow. Cut between 2 massive trunks. At the entrance was a stone marker, half sunken into the dirt. It bore a single word. Listen. I didn't want to go down that path. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around. But my feet moved on their own. The path sloped downward. The air grew colder. Then I began hearing it, a deep, slow pulse in my ears. Not a sound, more like pressure. A rhythm. A heartbeat. Not mine. I walked for what felt like another hour. But the moment I checked the GoPro, I realized it had only been 2 minutes. Time was broken here. I stopped walking and looked around. The forest was still. Utterly, impossibly still. Then the recorder in my pocket buzzed. I pulled it out. It was playing. By itself. And from the speaker I heard my own voice, my exact words from earlier in the day, but twisted. Slower. Bent at the edges. Then came a voice layered behind it. Whispering over me. "We can speak for you now." Your voice opened the way. "Tell more stories. Feed the root." I yanked the batteries out and ran. The forest didn't fight me. It let me go. But I had the overwhelming feeling it was only because it wanted me to leave, so it could follow me home. When I got back to my apartment, the lights were on. I hadn't left them that way. And my laptop, closed when I left, was open. Editing software running. A video loaded in the timeline. I didn't make it. It was titled, Darrow's Hollow, You're Not Alone. Length, 1 hour, 11 minutes. I hadn't been in the woods that long. I pressed play. The footage showed me walking, but not with the GoPro. Like someone else was filming me. From behind. And then, just for a second, the camera tilted sideways, as if the thing holding it leaned its head. In the final frame, as I leave the frame, something steps into view. Not clearly. Not fully. Just a silhouette between trees. But the face, the shape. It looked exactly like me. The face in the forest. My face. I paused the footage and stared at the frame. I zoomed in, sharpened, brightened, slowed it, did everything I could to prove it wasn't real. That it was an illusion, a shadow, a glitch. But the more I looked, the more it looked like me. Not just my face. My clothes. My stance. Even my backpack. Only, the eyes were wrong. Too wide. Too dark. Like they weren't just looking through the camera, but out of it. Watching me. I didn't remember any of it. I'd walked alone. No one else was there. So who or what filmed this? That night, I tried to write a script for my next video. Something normal. Something that didn't involve cursed bridges or whispering forests. I typed 2 lines, and the rest appeared on its own. I watched the text crawl across the screen. Letter by letter. As if invisible fingers were typing through me. You don't tell stories anymore. We do. And we know how they end. I yanked the laptop shut. Sat in silence. That's when the doorbell rang. 3 times. Soft. Rhythmic. I didn't move. Then came the knock, just once. On the inside of the front door. I waited until morning. Didn't sleep. Didn't breathe. When daylight broke, I opened the door. No one was there. But lying just beyond the threshold was another item. A reel of magnetic tape. Old school 8mm film. Wrapped in twine. And a sticky note. Play it. Share it. Or the story writes you. I had no film projector, but I converted it digitally using an old scanner rig. The reel showed flickering black and white footage. Grainy. Silent. At first, random shots of rooms, hallways, faces blurred beyond recognition. Then, a clear frame. Room 109, the asylum. Then the cemetery swing. The bridge. The mansion. All the places I'd visited, recorded from angles I never captured. Someone, something, had been filming me, even before I noticed. But the final clip made my skin crawl. It was a video of my apartment. Shot from inside. At night. The frame faced my bedroom door, closed. And then it opened. Slowly. And just before the film ended, a figure stepped into view. Not me. Not a ghost. Something in between. It wore my shape, but it wasn't me. Its eyes bled darkness. Its hands dragged long and sharp, like they'd split open from the fingertips. It stared into the camera. Then everything cut to black. I scrambled to delete every file I had, every upload, every copy. I unplugged my gear. Threw the lockbox in the river that night. Took the jack, the coin, the cassette, the photo, all of it, and burned what I could. It didn't help. Because the next morning, I found a USB drive on my desk. I hadn't brought it in. I hadn't even been outside. I plugged it into a disconnected laptop, off Wi-Fi, off power, battery only. Inside, a single folder, titled Oral Stories, Season 2, with 16 videos. All named. All thumbnail ready. All labeled with titles I never wrote, stories I hadn't filmed. But they were me. My voice. My face. My footage. Including some locations I hadn't visited yet. The world around me is changing. Every time I speak a story aloud, something reaches back. Not a spirit. Not a ghost. Something older. Something hungry. It doesn't want to haunt me. It wants to replace me. And now, I'm not sure if I'm still the one writing these words, or if it's already started using my voice. I got home late that night, the air heavy and thick with an oppressive silence I couldn't shake. The sun had dipped below the horizon hours ago, and the apartment was bathed in shadows that seemed to move just beyond the edges of the dim light. I was exhausted, not just physically, but mentally drained, my mind still tangled with the impossible things I'd seen at Whispering Hollow. After shutting the door behind me, I set down my camera bag and stared around the living room. The familiar surroundings felt off, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting. I flipped on every light, trying to chase away the shadows, but they clung stubbornly to corners and crevices, darkening as I moved toward my desk. That's when I noticed it. My notebook, the one where I'd been keeping detailed records of every place I'd visited, every sound I'd heard, every strange occurrence, was lying on the floor. Not under the desk where I always kept it, but sprawled open in the middle of the room. Pages fluttered lightly as if caught in a breeze. But the windows were closed. No drafts. I knelt down and reached for it, heart starting to pound. I flipped through the pages, but the words didn't make sense. Sentences I was certain I'd written were jumbled, paragraphs swapped, headings moved or completely missing. Some pages were torn, others crumpled, and the handwriting wasn't all mine anymore. There were new words scrawled between the lines, written in a shaky, erratic script. They watch when you sleep. The story is no longer yours. Your voice is theirs. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I slammed the notebook shut and scrambled back, away from the floor as if it had bitten me. For a moment I just stood there, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was a prank, some kind of cruel joke. But I live alone. No one else had been in my apartment. I flicked on the desk lamp, but it sputtered and died, plunging me back into shadow. Frustrated, I reached for my phone, switched on the flashlight, and shone it around the room. That's when I saw the message blinking on my screen. Unknown number. Tell us again. The words were simple, chilling. I swallowed hard. Who had sent it? Was someone watching me? Or was it something else? Suddenly, the silence in the apartment was shattered by a soft, slow tap, like footsteps pacing just outside my bedroom door. I froze, my blood turning to ice. The tapping grew louder, deliberate. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Just the echo of my voice bouncing back. I crept toward the hallway, heart pounding so loudly I thought it might burst through my chest. Each step was slow, careful, but the floorboards still creaked underfoot. I held the phone flashlight in front of me like a shield. At the threshold of my bedroom, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open fully. Nothing. Just the familiar room, the rumpled sheets, the glow of my laptop resting on the desk. No one. But the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. I stepped back into the hallway. That's when I saw it. A single Polaroid lying face up on the floor. I bent down and picked it up. The photo showed my living room, but not as I remembered it. The lamp on the side table was off. The window curtains were drawn. But standing dead center in the frame was a figure. Tall, dark, faceless. It was like looking into a void. I dropped the photo. It slid across the floor and came to rest at my feet. I could feel the temperature dropping rapidly, as if winter had moved in just inside my walls. Then I heard it again. Footsteps. But these were different. They weren't pacing or hesitant. They were slow, dragging. Closer. Coming from inside the walls. I pressed my ear against the cold plaster. The footsteps sounded like nails tapping against wood, sharp, uneven, but methodical. They circled the room, growing louder, as if moving right behind me. I whirled around, but saw nothing. Just empty space. No shadows. No figures. Only the cold air pressing in. Suddenly, the tapping stopped. Then the whisper. So faint I almost missed it. "Tell the story, tell the story," the voice repeated, threading through the silence like a soft chant. I staggered back, heart racing. Was I going insane? Or was something inside my home? The whispered words slid into my mind like poison. I could feel them burrowing deeper. "Tell the story." My hands shook. I grabbed the notebook from the desk. The pages seemed to shimmer in the flashlight's beam. I'd opened to a blank page, and the letters began to appear, written as if by invisible ink. One more tale. One more voice. One more soul to call home. I slammed the notebook shut, backing away. I felt like I was drowning in darkness. The walls seemed to pulse. The shadows grew thick. Then, all at once, the silence shattered. A low, guttural laugh echoed through the apartment. Not human. Not childlike. But ancient and hungry. My breath caught. The phone buzzed again. Another message. This time a video. I hesitated before opening it. The footage was shaky, filmed from a low angle. It showed my couch. Empty. Then, slowly, a shadow crept across the floor. A dark shape stretched upward. Then a pair of glowing eyes locked on the camera. The screen went black. No sound. I dropped the phone. It slid under the couch. I didn't dare reach for it. Instead, I sank to the floor, heart hammering. What had I gotten myself into? The stories weren't just stories anymore. They were alive. Watching. Waiting. And now, they were inside. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. I had to keep going. I had to tell the story. Because if I didn't know what would happen next. But I was terrified to find out. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same thing, the hallway outside my bedroom, stretching into blackness. At the end of it, the shadow with glowing eyes, watching, waiting. By morning, I was a wreck. I hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours, my phone was dead under the couch where I'd left it, and I hadn't touched my camera bag since the forest. But I couldn't stop now. Whatever this was, it was inside. Not just my home, but me. It whispered in my ears when no one was speaking. It rewrote my notes. It typed through my hands. And the next name on my list was Elliott Primary School. An old brick building on the edge of town. Closed since 1998. People said it was haunted, but not in the usual way. There weren't stories of teachers or headmasters or even tragedies. Only the children. Whispers of phantom laughter echoing through empty classrooms. Tiny footsteps tapping down cracked tile floors. And once in a while, a single phrase scratched into the chalkboards. "Class isn't over yet." I arrived just after noon. The building looked forgotten, windows shattered, vines crawling up the stone. The front doors sagged on their hinges, one stuck halfway open. As I stepped inside, the stale air hit me like a wave, chalk dust, mildew, and something older. Something rotten beneath the surface. I held up my flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, revealing rows of lockers dented and rusted. A water fountain was tipped over, the pipes beneath twisted like broken bones. I pulled out my recorder and hit the button. This is Elliott Primary. Closed 1998. Official reason? Lack of funding. Unofficial? Something darker. Locals talk about voices heard from the gymnasium. Laughter. But no one's seen a child here in 20 years. I moved deeper into the school. Every step echoed, my boots clapping against chip tile. Then, a second echo, delayed by half a beat. As if someone else was walking behind me, just out of sync. I spun around, light darting through dust. No one. But the air grew colder. My breath misted in front of me. I turned a corner into the main hall. Rows of old lockers lined both walls, and at the far end stood a classroom door, half open, like someone had just slipped inside. The moment I stepped toward it, a sharp clang rang out behind me. A locker had slammed shut. I turned back. Still no one. But on the metal surface of the locker, fresh finger streaks ran across the dust. For small, childlike prints, dragging downward. I raised my recorder again. There are signs of activity. Fresh markings. Could be wind, except there isn't any. The air is still. The school is sealed. And yet, something is here. I pushed open the classroom door. The hinges creaked like a scream. Inside, the desks were toppled, chalk dust thick on the ground. A child's backpack sat abandoned in the corner, blue and faded, the zipper hanging open like a mouth. I stepped toward the chalkboard. Words were faintly visible, barely legible beneath smudges. Don't forget us. I stared. Then I heard it. Laughter. From the hallway behind me. Not joyful, mocking. Soft and distant. The sound of children who knew something I didn't. I backed out of the classroom and pointed my flashlight down the hall. It flickered. Just once. And when it came back, all the classroom doors were open. Everyone. Like the school had exhaled. Then, from down the hall, a rhythm. Tap. 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 Tiny footsteps. Fast. Running. Right toward me. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The footsteps raced past, invisible, stopping just at the edge of the hallway. Then came a single, loud knock on the glass window of the classroom across from me. I turned. A small handprint was pressed to the inside of the glass. And then it faded, like breath evaporating from a mirror. I left the hall. I ran for the gymnasium. The old doors groaned as I shoved them open. Inside, the court was dust-covered, the basketball nets frayed and hanging limp. The bleachers were collapsed on one side, like something heavy had crushed them. At center court was a circle. Chalk. Fresh. I approached slowly. In the middle of the circle was a child's shoe, small, white, unlaced. And beside it, a piece of crumpled paper. I reached down and opened it. The handwriting was messy, like a child's. They took us into the dark. We didn't want to go. But they said we had to. Because we listened too long. I looked up. The far bleachers creaked. Something moved. Fast. A blur, too quick to follow, ducked behind the stage curtains. I followed, slowly. As I reached the curtain, I heard whispering. High-pitched. Children's voices. Repeating a single phrase. He's here to listen. He's here to stay. Now you'll never go away. My skin went ice cold. I turned on the camera. It wasn't recording. The battery had drained. Dead. I raised the recorder. Still working. I pressed it to my chest, hard hammering. Suddenly, from the other side of the curtain, a scream. Short. Sharp. Childlike. I flung the curtain aside. Nothing. Just old props. A broken music stand. But there, on the floor, was a drawing. Crayon. Red and black. A crude picture of a man standing in a hallway. And in front of him, dozens of tiny shadow figures. And above him, written in shaky red letters, "He tells our stories now." I got out of the school, ran until I collapsed in my car, breathing so hard I nearly passed out. I drove home in silence. Every stoplight blurred past. But when I finally reached my apartment, the front door was cracked open. Inside, my computer was on. A new video had uploaded. Elliott Primary School, they're still inside. I hadn't edited anything. I hadn't uploaded anything. But there it was. Live. Over 9,000 views in just minutes. The thumbnail? A freeze frame of me, inside the classroom. And behind me, in the corner, barely visible, a row of tiny shadowy figures. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. I woke up to over 300 new comments. At first, I thought the Elliott Primary School video had gone viral. I was half right. It had spread. Fast. Unnaturally fast. The numbers kept climbing, 20,000 views, then 35,000 within the hour. But the comments, they weren't celebrating the content. They were pleas. "Who's the kid standing behind you at 9:17? Why did I hear my name whispered at 2:33? I paused at 5:41 and there's a face in the chalkboard. Was that there before? Ever since I watched this, I feel like something's in my house. You need to stop uploading." At first, I tried to respond. Tried to calm them down, tell them it was just editing tricks or maybe an audio glitch. But deep down, I knew the truth. They weren't imagining it. And neither was I. That morning, I got a voicemail from someone who didn't leave a name. Her voice was trembling. I can't explain what's happening. I watched your video with my boyfriend, and now he's different. He just stands at the hallway mirror. Says he's listening for the bell. Please take the videos down." She ended with something that still chills me. "I don't think these are ghost stories anymore. I think you're building something. Or something's building through you." I opened the video file on my computer, the one I hadn't uploaded. The raw version. There was no kid in the background at 9:17. No whisper at 2:33. The chalkboard was blank. The footage online had changed. Like it was alive. Evolving. Rewriting itself. I pulled the plug on my modem. Turned off my router. Shut down everything connected to the internet. But it was too late. Even offline, my screen flashed. New video files appeared on their own. New titles. All labeled with familiar phrases I'd written in my notebook. Phrases I'd never said out loud. Some of the videos showed places I hadn't visited yet. Others showed my own apartment. Footage I hadn't taken. In one I was asleep. The camera sat at the foot of my bed, pointed straight at me. For 9 hours. And in the last minute of the video, I smiled, wide, slow, and unnatural. I didn't remember any of it. That evening, I got an email from a longtime subscriber, Ben, someone who had followed me since the first Oral Stories upload. His subject line, "Help. I think I brought something back." The message was short. "I watched the school episode in my garage. About halfway through, my kid started screaming upstairs. He said someone was whispering through the AC vents. When I checked, his door was locked from the inside. We don't even have a lock on that door. It gets worse. Now he keeps repeating the phrase, 'The story is mine now.' I haven't slept. Every time I look in a mirror, I see a second reflection. Slightly behind me. Like something's copying me. Alex, what did you unleash?" I sat staring at the screen for a long time. Then I noticed the timestamp. The email had been sent before the video went live. I needed answers fast. I pulled out the old notebook, flipping through the scrawled pages, ignoring the ones that seemed to rewrite themselves when I blinked. Tucked near the back was something I hadn't written. A diagram. Rough, circular. Like a map. It showed 6 locations. 5 were ones I had already visited: the asylum, the cemetery, the bridge, the mansion, the school. The 6th had no name, just a question mark and a symbol. A spiral wrapped around an eye. Underneath, a single word written in red: audience. I slammed the book shut and pushed it across the room. That's when my phone buzzed again, despite being offline. I didn't even know it could do that. The screen lit up with a video call. Blocked number. My heart thudded. Against every instinct, I answered. For several seconds, the screen showed static. Then it flickered into view. My face. But it wasn't me. The other Alex stared through the screen, eyes wide and motionless. Behind him stood rows of faces, blurry, distorted, watching. Every single one of them had eyes that bled black. Then, in my own voice, the thing whispered, "You told them. We listened. Now we're telling you." The call ended. The screen went black. And when it lit up again, a new video was uploading. Title: Episode 12, The Lighthouse That Still Signals. I didn't press anything. I didn't touch a thing. And yet it was going live. All by itself. I opened the window to clear my head. Outside, across the street, a man stood perfectly still beneath the flickering streetlight. He wasn't moving. Not a twitch. I stared at him for several minutes. When I blinked, he was suddenly closer. Still unmoving. Still watching. I slammed the windows shut and backed away. But the whisper started again, this time not in the walls, not in the screens, but inside my ears. Like my own voice. Only twisted. Speaking backwards. Repeating the same sentence over and over. They are watching too. I know now that this isn't just about the places. The stories are not confined to locations. They've spread through the sound, the visuals, the narrative. Through me. Through my channel. Through my viewers. This thing, whatever it is, it was never about scaring people. It was about breaking through. And I've helped it. Every upload. Every word. Every share. It doesn't need me to finish the story. It just needed me to start it. And now, I don't know how to stop. I never uploaded the lighthouse video. At least, I don't remember doing it. But there it was. On my channel. Fully edited, titled, with a thumbnail of me standing at the lighthouse entrance. Something I hadn't filmed yet. I hadn't even gone there. Not physically. But it was live. 18,000 views. Comments piling in. I sat frozen, watching it loop on my screen. My voice told a story I hadn't written. I described rooms I hadn't entered. I even read out a ship's log, word for word. The problem? I recognized the voice. But I don't remember speaking. Not any of it. I had to know what was waiting at the real location. So I drove. The lighthouse stood at the end of a crumbling causeway, wind-whipped and skeletal against the bruised sky. The sea below churned in angry gray waves, crashing against the rocks like they were trying to claw their way up the shore. It was completely cut off. No power lines. No cell service. Just stone and silence. I crossed the rusted gate, the air humming faintly in my ears, like a distant static. The front door was cracked open. Inside, the smell hit me first: salt, mildew, and something metallic. Old blood. Or maybe rust. The spiral staircase groaned under my weight as I climbed. I stopped on the first floor landing, where a heavy door marked "Keeper's Quarters" hung half open. Inside, a single bed, a rusted lantern, and a mirror facing the wall. Odd. I turned it around slowly. What stared back wasn't my reflection. It was me, but older. Gaunt. Tired. Eyes bloodshot and empty. I stepped back, and the mirror cracked. No impact. Just cracked top to bottom, like it didn't want me to see what came next. I kept climbing. Higher and higher, my breath catching at every step. The spiral seemed longer than it should have been, as if the tower grew taller the deeper I went. Eventually, I reached the light chamber. And it was on. Not flickering. Not broken. On. Pulsing a slow, rhythmic beam out into the fog. Even though there was no power, no wiring. Even though the lens had been shattered years ago. The entire room buzzed with that humming static. Louder now, like a warning or a signal. I stepped closer to the bulb. And then I saw it. Scrawled beneath the lens, etched into the metal by hand. Do not answer. I froze. Outside, the wind howled. The sea roared. But inside the tower, everything fell silent, until the light flickered once. And the signal changed. Now it was blinking. In Morse code. I took out my phone, quickly recording the pattern. Back at the car, I translated it. A single phrase. You spoke the story. Now we see you. That night back home, I went over the lighthouse footage again. In the version I filmed, the chamber was broken. The light was off. The mirror hadn't existed. But in the online version, it was exactly as I'd just experienced it. As if the video had filmed my future before I'd even lived it. Worse still, I noticed a figure in the background, standing on the edge of the cliff outside the lighthouse. Just barely visible in the mist. And when the light passed over him, he didn't cast a shadow. Later that night, the humming came back. Not from the tower. From my apartment. From inside the walls. The same pitch. The same rhythm. I pressed my ear to the drywall. And heard whispering. Layered voices. High and low. Male and female. Familiar and foreign. They repeated the same word. Signal. 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 Suddenly, the lights in my apartment dimmed. Then came back. Pulsing. On, off, in the same Morse code. I recorded it again. Decoded it. It's working. We are coming. I tried to destroy the footage. Deleted the video. Ripped the memory card from the camera. Even crushed the lens with a hammer. None of it mattered. The next morning, a new thumbnail was waiting. Episode 13. The book in the attic. Scheduled for upload. Automatically. Set to premiere in 23 hours. No way to cancel. No way to delete. The description field was already filled in. Some stories find you. Others follow. This one waited. I stared at the screen, heart thudding in my chest. I hadn't written that. But it sounded exactly like me. Like something using my thoughts. My patterns. My tone. I scrolled down to the comments. They had already started appearing, even before the premiere. Each one chilling. We saw the lighthouse before you filmed it. The signal reached us. My daughter stood in front of our fireplace and said she was waiting for the beam. She's never seen your videos. When the light passed over my window, my reflection blinked. I didn't. Don't upload the next story. It's already in our homes. We're listening. We have to now. I shut the laptop and sat in silence. The signal wasn't just light. It wasn't just sound. It was the story. And the story was now inside everyone. The signal had spread. And it wasn't done yet. I didn't even know my apartment had an attic. It's an old building, sure. Early 1900s. Creaky floors, drafty windows, pipes that groan at night. But never once, in the 3 years I've lived here, did I think to look up. But this morning, I woke up to a new sound. Scratching. Soft, rhythmic, almost like someone dragging their fingernails along wood. Above me. Above the ceiling. I stood in the middle of my living room, staring up. The noise was faint but unmistakable. Not rats. Not pipes. It was deliberate. I climbed onto the couch, pulled the light fixture off, and found it, barely noticeable, a rectangular cut in the ceiling, covered with a warped panel of old plywood. The attic. I don't know what possessed me to go up there. Maybe I was being pulled. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe, deep down, I knew something was waiting. I found a step ladder, pushed the panel open, and peered into the blackness. The air that spilled out was cold and dry. It smelled like old paper and mildew, and something else, something bitter. Something dead. I hoisted myself up. Dust filled my nose instantly. My flashlight cut through thick webs and cobwebs of time. The attic was larger than expected. Planks creaked beneath my knees as I crawled forward. Boxes were piled high, most filled with junk, rotting clothes, broken fans. But in the center, resting neatly on a beam, was a book. It looked ancient. Bound in cracked black leather, covered in a thick film of dust. No title on the cover. No markings. I reached for it. And the attic breathed. I don't know how else to describe it. The air pulled inward, like the whole room inhaled around me. But I was already touching the book. The moment my fingers brushed the cover, the scratching stopped. I brought it downstairs. At my desk, I opened the book carefully. The pages were yellowed, brittle, handwritten in ink that had faded to a sickly brown. The writing wasn't mine, but I recognized it. The same erratic script from the scrawled messages in my notebook. The same handwriting that had been appearing in my video's descriptions. The first page simply read, "The Oral Stories." I froze. No one else knew the original working name I used when starting the channel. I never said it aloud. Never typed it anywhere. It was just an idea in a buried folder years ago. The next pages weren't blank. They were full. Every entry was a story I had already told. Verbatim. But dated decades before I was born. The asylum. The cemetery. The mansion. The school. The lighthouse. Each chapter written by a different hand, but the stories were identical. Word for word. And after those came new stories. Ones I hadn't told yet, but recognized from the scheduled uploads I never made. They were waiting in the book. As if the book was writing my channel before I ever had the idea to create it. My hands trembled as I flipped through the final pages. The ink there was fresh. Still wet. The final chapter was titled, "The Man Who Listened Too Long." And the protagonist's name was Alex. The entry ended mid-sentence. He read the final story aloud, and when he looked up, that's it. Just blank pages after that. Like the ending hadn't happened yet. I closed the book and nearly dropped it when I saw the time. 3:17 p.m. Exactly 2 hours and 43 minutes before the next auto-upload. The book in the attic. Somehow, the footage had already been filmed. Somehow, the story was already told. But I hadn't done it. Not yet. I turned on my camera. Hit record. "I didn't write this one," I said, staring into the lens. "If you're watching, you need to stop. Please. Close this tab. Walk away. Don't let it in. This one isn't just a story, it's a door." But even as I spoke, I felt it. The book behind me, humming. Not audibly, but inside. Like my bones were vibrating. A pressure built behind my eyes. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. I blacked out. Just gone. And when I came to, the camera was off. The book was closed. And the video had been uploaded. I watched it. Even though I swore I wouldn't. The screen showed me sitting calmly, smiling, holding the book. Reading passages in a voice that wasn't mine. But it wasn't the reading that scared me. It was the moments in between. When I would stop mid-sentence, look off camera, and laugh. Like someone was standing just off-screen, whispering in my ear. The screen flickered. At timestamp 6:06, my eyes go completely black for 2 seconds. No pupils. No whites. Just void. People were already commenting. At 4:44 I heard someone say my name. Why does my hallway feel longer after watching this? I keep hearing someone turning pages in my house. I had a dream that I wrote the same book. Same title. But I woke up with ink on my fingers. It's in the attic now. My attic. Alex, what have you done? I tried burning the book. Took it to the fireplace. But when the flames licked at the leather, the fire died. No smoke. No ash. The fire just went out. Like the book drank it. I left it outside on the balcony overnight. In the morning, it was back on my desk. Open to a blank page. A pen resting neatly beside it. As if waiting. I haven't picked it up again. I don't know if I ever will. But as I write this now, my fingers are starting to ache. My ears ring constantly. And the final chapter keeps finishing itself. In my dreams. In the walls. In the whispers. I think I know what it wants. It doesn't want to be read. It wants to be told. And I think I've already told it. I haven't slept in 2 days. Every time I close my eyes, I hear voices, not dreams, but conversations in languages I don't understand. Ancient, slow, and layered, like overlapping radio signals from beyond time. They echo behind my eyelids like trapped static, and I wake with nosebleeds and ink stains on my hands. The book is still writing itself. Even when I lock it away, even when I place it outside, even when I leave the house entirely. I come back to find it open again. Different passages. More names. Names of my subscribers. And some of the names are already crossed out. I don't know what that means. But I know it's bad. I needed help. Desperate, I posted anonymously on a private folklore forum. I didn't mention my name, my channel, or the specifics, just asked if anyone had heard of a book that writes your life before you live it. Most of the replies were trash. Until one came in from a user named Mirroring13. It simply said, "You've found the Whisperer's Codex. Stop speaking the stories. If you value your voice, or your mind, you'll never read from it again. Especially not out loud. The moment you give it breath, it becomes flesh." And then, as I refreshed the thread, the user deleted their account. Whisperer's Codex. I dug hard. Deep forums, banned wikis, and web archives barely hanging on. And finally I found it. A scan of an ancient ledger from 1743. It wasn't a book in the traditional sense, more like a tool, used by wandering storytellers across Europe. They weren't just bards or authors. They were mediums, chosen or cursed, to transcribe things that didn't belong in our world. Things that spoke through stories. They believed that certain tales weren't meant to entertain, but to inhabit. And when spoken aloud, they used the audience's attention as a channel, a gateway. One name kept appearing in every historical mention of the Codex. The last voice, Elias Gray, a 19th century British storyteller who vanished after performing a string of mysterious tale nights across rural towns. Entire villages would report mass hallucinations after hearing his stories. Fires would break out for no reason. People would vanish. And then Elias disappeared too. The only trace left behind? A phrase carved into a wooden stage. I was only the voice. They were the author. That night, I dreamed of Elias. He stood at the foot of my bed, his mouth stitched shut. Still, I could hear his voice in my head. It never wanted an ending. It only wanted an audience. Every word you give it is a door. Stop speaking. When I woke up, my throat was raw, like I'd been screaming. And my YouTube channel had uploaded another video. Episode 14, The Curse of the Storyteller. It was a screen recording of my desktop. Me researching Elias Gray. Reading the forums. The pages I visited. The video even included my private notes, stuff I never filmed. But the creepiest part? At the 1313 mark, the screen goes dark. My reflection appears faintly in the monitor. But I'm not alone. A figure stands behind me, draped in shadow, head tilted, listening, smiling. My subscribers notice too. Alex, there's someone standing behind you. Is this part of the story, or is this real? I watched this and now my daughter won't speak. She just points at the corner of the room and says he's still telling it. I can't stop hearing the voice. It repeats the stories even when I mute the video. Please, make it stop. The book's final pages are nearly full now. Some entries are already scratched out, like rejected drafts. Others are still unfinished, shifting, twitching beneath the ink. But one page stays blank. Mine. My story ends with the phrase, "And when he realized what he'd done, he finally understood the price of every story." And under that, a space. As if it's waiting for me to finish it. With my own voice. I think I know what the curse is now. It's not a haunted object. It's not just a book. It's the act of storytelling itself. A doorway. The more people who listen, the wider the door opens. And now that my videos have reached tens of thousands, I'm not the only one haunted. I've cursed every single one of them. Every viewer. Every listener. Every click. And I think it's too late to stop it. Unless I can seal it shut. The same way Elias Gray did. With a final story. One that tells the truth. One that traps the whisperers inside. But to do that, I have to finish the tale. I have to give it an ending. And endings, I've learned, come with sacrifice. Mine. My channel. My voice. Maybe even more. I'm writing now with the lights off. The apartment hums with energy I can't explain. My reflection in the mirror doesn't match my movements anymore. The book turns its own pages now. The shadows speak when I'm not looking. And I swear I can hear the voices of my subscribers, echoing from the walls, repeating the stories back to me. Word for word. They're inside the tale now. Trapped. And it's my fault. But I'll fix it. One final upload. One final narration. And then silence. I don't want to keep going. But I can't stop. I tried once, last night. I unplugged everything, my camera, my mic, even my laptop. Shut it all down. Locked the book in a toolbox and threw it off the pier. I watched it sink. But when I got home, it was sitting on my desk again. Dry. Open to the same page. The final sentence, still unfinished. Still waiting for me to complete it. And now, I feel it in my chest, this pressure. Like my lungs are full of static. Like I'll suffocate if I don't speak. Like every second I stay silent, something inside me claws to get out. This isn't writer's block. It's something far worse. It's possession by narrative. And I'm the one telling it. Even when I don't want to. My phone buzzes every few minutes now. Text messages, voicemails, even photos from unknown numbers. All with one thing in common. My words, repeated back to me by strangers. The cemetery whispers louder now. I didn't mean to listen, but now I see. The mirror doesn't show me anymore. You made me hear it, Alex. Why won't it stop? One message chilled me to the core. It was just an audio clip. A child's voice. Tell the story. Or we'll tell it for you. I checked the number. It was mine. I had messaged myself. And I don't remember recording it. The worst part? I still want to finish. Some part of me craves it. I sit down at the mic, and the words pour out without effort. Smooth. Controlled. Like I've rehearsed them 100 times. Sometimes I wake up at the mic, already halfway through a recording I don't remember starting. My voice sounds calm. Confident. Too perfect. Too, not me. My subscribers have noticed. In the comments, why does your voice sound different in the last episode? Like something's behind it? You don't blink at all in the last video. You just stare. It's like you're being puppet. I paused at 4:21 and saw dozens of faces in the background. They weren't yours. I got a letter in the mail today. Real mail. No return address. Just a black envelope, sealed with wax. Inside was a single page typed. The final story is not yours. You are the vessel, not the voice. Finish it, and we return. Resist, and we remain. I burned the page instantly. But the words stayed with me, tattooed behind my eyes. And then, more confirmation I'm not in control. I checked my YouTube dashboard. Another episode was already scheduled. Part 16. The Final Seal. Thumbnail, my face, but distorted. Eyes fully black. Blood trailing from my ears. Title. I recorded one final story to end the curse, but now I'm trapped in it. The video isn't uploaded, but it's already been viewed. 6,423 previews. How is that even possible? Unless the story has detached from time. Unless the curse has outgrown the channel. Outgrown me. I noticed something new about the book today. Its spine is cracked now. Almost broken. Like something inside is trying to burst out. The pages no longer stay still. They shift when I glance away. And the ink keeps appearing in my dreams, spelling words across the walls of impossible landscapes. Tell them. Finish us. Unseal. I screamed at the book. Threw it across the room. It slid to a stop, opened to a page I swear wasn't there before. A page titled, After Alex. Below it, blank lines. But as I stared, the faint outline of new names began to appear. Names I didn't recognize. Random usernames. Email handles. First names. Last names. Subscriber names. It's writing their stories now. They're part of it. They're next. Unless I seal it. Unless I give it an ending. But every ending comes with a cost. And I think I know what mine is. I have to give it my voice. My channel. My name. Maybe even my soul. Because the story has always been hungry. It doesn't just want ears. It wants an identity. It wants to live through the teller. And it's lived through me long enough. So I'm writing a script now. The last one. I'll record it. Edit it. Upload it. And then delete everything. The channel. The files. The stories. Me. Everything that gives it a platform. If this works, maybe it'll be sealed again. Maybe it'll go quiet. For a while. But if it doesn't, then you'll be next. Not because you listened, but because you remembered. I locked every door. Unplugged every camera. Covered every reflective surface. This has to be done in total isolation. No mics. No screens. No one listening. But I can still feel the story pressing behind my eyes, like static under my skin. It writhes and coils in my throat like a living thing, hungry for release. This is the last one. The final upload. Not for entertainment. Not for subscribers. But to shut the door I opened. I set up the mic. Not connected to the internet. Just a recorder. An old one. Analog. Taped over, then erased again. As safe as I could make it. The script was already written. Not by me. By the book. But I'll read it anyway, because that's what it wants. That's the deal. If I say the words aloud, the story finishes. The gate closes. And I disappear. I'm okay with that now. The book is on the desk beside me. Breathing. Pages fluttering in a wind that doesn't exist. I hit record. And begin. This is the last story. The one that loops back to the first. The story of a voice, mine, that found something it wasn't meant to speak. A voice that let something old in. A voice that tried to warn you too late. But now it ends. The room is ice cold. My breath fogs. The shadows in the corners shift and watch. But I keep reading. I feel my words layering, doubling back on themselves. Every sentence echoes wrong, bending the air. My voice becomes two, then three, then none. I can't hear myself anymore. But the recorder still spins. The story flows through me. You cannot erase a story. But you can end its telling. You can silence its voice. And if the voice agrees, if the voice becomes the seal, The door closes again. The final paragraph is blank. But I know what to say. I've known all along. I am the last voice. And I choose silence. I stop the tape. The moment the recorder clicks off, the air shifts. The book lets out a long, low crack. The spine splits open. Black smoke, or ink, bleeds from between the pages, curling like fingers, reaching, then faltering. The story is being sucked back in. The lights flicker once. Then again. Then stay off. The book slams shut on its own. And everything goes silent. Truly silent. No humming. No whispers. No scratching in the walls. Even my thoughts go still. The story is sealed. I wake up on the floor. It's morning. The air is clean. Still. The book is gone. My voice is hoarse. Hollow. I try to speak, but nothing comes out. I record a test clip. Mouth moves. Mic works. But no sound. Nothing. It's taken my voice. Just like Elias Gray. A fair trade. The channel is gone too. All videos deleted. All accounts deactivated. Even old backups erased from drives. Like it never existed. Like I never existed. But I'm still here. A hollow shell of the narrator I used to be. And maybe that's enough. I moved out that week. I don't talk to anyone now, not that I could. I leave no notes. No trace. But sometimes I see signs. Glitches and reflections. Books open to blank pages on park benches. Streetlights blinking in Morse. Are you listening? And worst of all, a new YouTube channel. Only a few subscribers. No videos yet. But the name chilled me. Whispers unheard. And the description reads: the story continues where the last voice ended. I didn't make it. But someone, or something, did. Maybe sealing it bought us time. But it wasn't a cure. Just a pause. A comma. Not a period. Because stories like this don't end. They wait. For a voice. For a listener. And now, you've heard it too.
Hey, guys, that's the end of this story. What did you think? Did it creep you out, make you think, or remind you of something strange from your own life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and love hearing what you're feeling. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe for more eerie tales like this one. Hit that bell so you don't miss the next video, because you never know what's lurking around the corner. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.